Alright guys, Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. What I've got for you today is an analysis to Band-maid's Carry On Living. If you just want the straight reaction, I'll link to that with the eye up there. I found a version here that's got the English lyrics on it, so I might even pay a bit of attention to the lyrics this time. There's a few things I want to kind of touch on, one being the low B I talked about, and I think it's in drop D, so I'll explain that in a little bit more detail. Before we crack on to it, just a huge thank you and massive shout out to Rabbi Rabs, Matt Hortzman, Glenn Kelly, Stephen Williams and Rebecca Hay for the continued support on Patreon. And if you yourself have the means and the inclination to support the channel, make sure to help patreon.com/JBF Music to allow me to keep doing these and also help guide me towards any content or suggestions that you think I should check out. I'm probably going to use a combination of the studio audio and the live version to make sure I'm talking about kind of fingering positions and stuff like that correctly. The first thing I want to do is have a look at this riff and the tuning. So I know that people that watch these videos are all kind of different levels in terms of like what they know in terms of music and what they don't. So I want to try and take a bit of time to explain some of the things that I've maybe glossed over in the past. So the first thing here is a tuning called drop D tuning. Now the way a guitar is normally tuned is you go an E, out of tune, an A, a D, a G, bit out of tune there as well I think. It's just the problem of having changing temperatures in not so sunny Scotland in the winter, because it's made out of wood, temperature, it changes, your guitar's got to tune more often. B, and then an E. This is what you call standard tuning. The reason it's tuned like this, the technical term is basically most of it's in fourths, so notes are a fourth higher than each other. To confuse things, the B string's just tuned a third higher, major third, and the E string a fourth higher again. If you think something like a violin is tuned in fifths, the notes are kind of, the strings are further apart from each other. The reason it's done like this, I think, is simply to make life a bit easier. So we have these things called open chords, which is basically like if you're playing open strings, that's what it's called. If you play a string and nothing's fretted, it's called an open string. You can probably gather a chord is like more than one note played at the same time. So an open chord is generally a chord that uses open strings. Kind of your campfire chords or your cowboy chords, whatever you want to call them. They're the ones people kind of start off learning. Because the guitar is tuned in this way, it makes that easier. And something like a bar chord, where we basically hold down this entire fret here, so this will be an A major bar chord. It means this is possible. If it was tuned differently, I wouldn't be able to just hold down all these notes with this finger. But what people do sometimes do is tune it differently. And one of the reasons for this is it can make certain things easier to play. So in this song, they're in drop D. What's a drop D? Well, you take this string, this lowest string, that was an E, and you drop it down to a D. That's it. So if you hear drop D or dropped D, that's it. A double drop D would be where you take the high E string and you drop that down to a D as well. There can be uses for this. I don't think they do it in this song, so I'm not going to go into it. So all that's happened now is my tuning has changed from a D to an A to D to G to B, and then that's still an E. You might notice this means there's a D here and a D here. What this means is we can play the same fret on those two strings and it'll be the same note. This string just being an octave. I've got an accidental harmonic there. Can we try that again? if you're interested in tapped harmonics, I'll link to a lesson explaining that with the eye up there, but I don't want to derail this any more than I already have. So you basically got a note here, the same note, an octave higher. So same fret, right? Because this is moved down, we can also just play this note in the middle, and we get what's called a power chord. So a root, it's fifth, and then the root again. So you can play a really chunky sound by just using one finger. Something like Heart-Shaped Box, Nirvana. Yeah. It takes advantage of this being able to play the chord with just kind of one finger. The other uses of drop D is that you get this big chunky kind of thing here, and you can play riffs that would be very difficult to move about with this, because normally you need to do this shape for a power chord. We've got one finger here, and then on the fret higher these here. So something like if you had to move quickly. So kind of like maybe Muse, kind of new metal band stuff like Limp Bizkit or like Incubus, Rage Against the Machine use drop D quite a lot as well. That's one of the uses for if you want that kind of chunky sound and don't want to be sliding your hand all over the fretboard. You can just just do that. And that's what they kind of do here. So we finally get into the song. This is probably a record for me. I've not even pushed the blooming play button yet. We're already derailed everything. But hopefully that has served to demystify some of the stuff, because I am aware I kind of breeze through things. I trying to cater for things and keep it somewhat interesting. Not repeat myself too much either. But anyway, let's listen to this riff. So there's two things this riff reminds me of. The first is Ocean Colour Scene Riverboat song, dun, 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 which was probably kind of a slight rip-off of Whole Lot of Love, but they do it in 3/4 or 6/8. And also Shy Boy by Steve Vai, which is also kind of a homage, or a slight, I'd say homage rather than a rip-off of Van Halen. So probably Hot for Teacher or something like that. But we take this riff. What was it starting on? So I checked out the live version to see how Konami plays this, and what she does is we've got the 9th fret on the lowest string. It used to be an E, now a D, up to 12, and then 14. The way she plays this is quite different from what I do in terms of fingering. She goes using her first finger here, 3rd finger, and then slides up. I would tend to go first finger, move that, and then use my 3rd finger there. So she would go, oops. Whereas I would go. That way it's just better for my muscle memory. I can kind of not look at the guitar and pull it off more consistently. I can't tell totally if it's just single notes like that. It sounds like it is here. For the intro, then I think here they're going to full power chord. So this is where this drop D thing comes in useful. So playing that lowest string, the A string, and the other D string. And then the last time, I think it's that, or is it dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. Something like that. So we had the 5th fret there with quite heavy palm muting, so that's where you put your palm against the strings without it. Sounds fine, but it doesn't have the same aggression. And then jump, jump, jump. So that'd be down, down, up. Then I kind of power slide. Again, the same idea, just barring across this 4th fret. So you've got that. Hopefully that's explained that riff for those of you that want to have a go at it, and showing another use of this drop D thing. If we're in standard tuning, just for reference, put myself back up to an E here. I've got a tuner here, so that's what I'm staring at. I've just lost the plot and staring into the abyss. Not yet. So that was, where'd that be? Dun, dun, dun. It's in a different, right, because the string is now higher in pitch, I have to go lower down the fretboard to play it. So this note, which used to be here, is now here. So for example, if I'm trying to play the power chords, yeah, you can hear it sloppy already, because instead of just moving one finger, I'm having to keep this shape, right, across the strings. Another interesting thing to note is if you're doing the riff as a single line, you could play it here or here. You'll notice there's a different sound. Using these lower strings, because they're thicker, it's a little bit more Black Sabbath, a little more garage rock, a little bit kind of woolier. Here is a bit more perhaps a bit clearer, but if you want that slight kind of a bit fuzzier, a bit more Queens of the Stone Age, playing the same riff on different strings can have a huge impact on the I say huge impact, it has an impact on the timbre and can kind of change the feel. So with different tunings, it's whether it's like a slight chicken egg situation. So sometimes you'll have a riff and you'll be like, actually, if I put this in a different tuning, it'll be easier to play. And other times you just start off in a tuning, and because things are more intuitive, or you kind of approach the instrument differently, things just kind of fall out. So whether it was a riff that were like, I can play it this way, it would sound better in drop D, or they're in drop D already and jammed it out, I don't know. It's, as I say, the kind of chicken egg. It doesn't matter too much either way, but I thought it was worthwhile at least highlighting that. So 6 seconds in, and I've probably gone on for about 10 minutes at this point. apologies in advance. But that's where the chapters are there. You can skip past it. So we've got this, and you can hear over the top this kind of octaves coming in. Yeah, so oh dear. Yeah, is that it? Double check. So what's cool there is the lead guitar's doing octaves. I've covered those before, linked to it out there. Playing this kind of slightly dissonant kind of tens line. It sounds fine by itself. When you put the two parts together, it adds this kind of edge, and then they're both doubling up. That nice little chug on the lower chords. And even the drums, dun, 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 really to kind of sell that rhythmic stab or kind of rhythmic hook almost. And then taking the same kind of stab idea in this verse and like running with it a little bit more, which is something they seem to like to do. Finally, where's that? I'm still in the air. So you can hear bam, 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 bam. They're kind of keeping this stab thing going on, which is cool because it's adding like a lot of articulation, really accenting the kind of rhythm. Huge fill there. Let's pop that back. Cool. So these toms are quite heavily gated. If I can work out a way to demonstrate this in Cubase, I'll do it. But what gating does is it basically means kind of cutting out the sustain. So when you hit a tom, it's like, the big kind of tribally sounding one, the Phil Collins, those are toms. A lot of the time they have a lot of sustain, so you hit it and it kind of goes and rings out. If you gate it, what you do is you kind of cut out the sustain, so it doesn't sound as big and rumbly, but you get this nice tight kind of fill. You think like 80s Phil Collins is probably a fairly good example of that kind of tight fill. If you compare that to maybe like a John Bonham or like a kind of Black Sabbath, I forget his name. It's not Bill Ward, is it? Correct me in the comments. I should have my metal license taken away from me for getting the drummer's name. But yeah, that kind of slightly more boomy kind of 60s thing compared to the modern, more kind of compressed and gated sound. So if someone talking about a gate or a noise gate, that's probably what they're talking about. It kind of cuts off some of the sustain or some of the transients, I suppose you could call it. Makes your mix cleaner. It means it's not quite as muddy. Alright, so quickly running through them, these are all the toms. I'm just going to hit one after the other, and if you listen really closely, there's an awful lot of sustain, so you get the middle, like the initial hit, and then it kind of rings out for quite a while after. So you can almost hear like a pitch of Similar with this one, it's a bit bigger, so it'll be lower in pitch. I don't think I can go that low, but the octave higher. Sounds like it's roughly there to me. So I'll hit that without speaking, and again you can hear the sustain. Cool, and then we've got the floor toms, similar thing again. A bit tighter on those, the sustain's a lot more in the low end. I'll hit that again if you want to listen to it. There's almost a kind of sub-bass thing, it's quite difficult to hear. You might kind of feel a kind of sense of closeness more than anything else around your kind of your ears. And same with that one, it's just really kind of low in the pitch, the sustain. So the noise gate is now on, and what it will do is gate the sound. So the sustain is pretty much gone. So you can hear this a tiny bit, and then the noise gate just clamps down on it. Where this is useful is if you have like a fill. You can hear there, when everything's finished, there's no kind of muddiness in the mix. It sounds a lot more robotic, a bit more 80s. So it's an aesthetic choice where they want things to be kind of tight and punchy, or a bit more boomy, or somewhere in between the two. So for context, I've moved the range here all the way to 0 dB, so it's not really working anymore. And if I I do the same fill, you can hear there's much more sustain. Again, it's this kind of low end rumble. Pop it back on. So that's even more severe than before. You can go very harsh. I think I probably had it somewhere around here before. Yeah, so you're getting a bit more. Typically what you do is have these all mic'd up individually and apply different noise gates, and you can even adjust the noise gates throughout the song depending on what you want. As a rough guide, somewhere around here. It helps keep the kind of body of it so it still feels quite full. I messed up that one there. Try to use the mouse here to play a fill, not advised. But it still kind of keeps a bit of body. But it's still kind of tight as well. It's not going to muddy up the mix too much. And here, they again leaning into the kind of rhythmic stabbing thing, and I think I said it reminded me a little bit of Brilliant City. I'll link to my analysis of that with that up there. It's just a kind of post-rock thing where you have dun 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 dun. It was kind of catchy but slightly syncopated rhythms. Syncopated, a fancy word of saying like a bit funky, a bit off the beat, instead of just being 1, 2, 3, 4, like dun 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 dun. You know, hopefully that made sense. And there, cool. They're taking the same idea but making it more dissonant. Yeah, that bam, 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 bam. It's probably going to be a key change here. Yeah, cool. This is interesting. In the live version, it sounded more ska than it does here. Here, it sounds more kind of like a kind of dancey pop rock thing to me, which isn't neither here nor there which style you prefer. But it's interesting that the kind of context and I suppose the mix, because the hi-hat was really prominent in the live version I looked at. Whereas here the guitars are much more front and centre. More stabs again, cool. And I love stuff like that when they do a little pause and the drum fill. Bam, sliding out of the note. What would it be? A fret out, not too bad. Sliding out, little fill. One more time. And even little touches like that instead of it being it's a just filling it out. Little decisions you make in the studio, you know, try 2 different versions, see if the stab's better, see if sliding out's better, or if you let it ring, you know. Tiny decisions, all adds up. Cool. And then we did a typical bandmaid thing where I've hardly paid attention to the lyrics. There's too much going on, guys. I tried. Let's stick it into our lifeline. Yeah, so they've taken the same rhythm of the first verse, but there's now a lead part on top of it. Is it coming back in? And then just going mental with the kick drum. Right, so I'll go back so we can listen to that. So it'll play along with that. So you can probably hear that's really crunchy. For the guitarists among us, we're up at the 9th fret on the normal D string. I'm playing it together with the 11th fret and the G. Taking that same shape up to the 12th fret, and then we're going to go play the D string and then the G string, back to the D, and then down to the 10th fret on the D. That's where the spice comes in. 12th fret on the G, and I think went back to the D again. So you got them together. Up. So for those interested in the music theory, what we're kind of doing here is implying a B Phrygian type of sound. So a bit like Vega's theme in Street Fighter 2. I think I related it to that before. You can link to something up there, hopefully that'll explain it in a bit more detail. But it's adding in a bit more tension and getting away from the kind of rhythmic stabs they had in the first verse. Just showing you that the song's going somewhere. It's a typical songwriting thing to do. You'll put an extra overdub or something in the second verse, but these guys just love to do it. They love to overcomplicate things. And here, yeah, you can just hear the kick drum just rattling away. That's cool. So there's some nice kind of lush chords here, and the stabs again really helping us know that there's a section change as well. Yeah, cool. So we've also got, I think I talked about this in a previous video. If you remember which one it is, I'll link to it with the ever-present, omnipresent eye. It's 4 on the floor, so the kick drum's going dum 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 dum. Call it 4 on the floor because the kick drum's on the floor and it's playing on every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quite typical from disco. So I think that's why I'm getting this kind of dancey thing. The hi-hat on the offbeat, giving it that dancey feel. Cool, and the vocals even kind of tying in to some of the rhythmic stabs as well. I think this is solo time, so let's have a listen to that. Sound like there's going to be a diddle. There we go. Yeah, so this is the I don't know how I did that, to be honest with you. That was just pure luck. This is the Konami move, the kind of thing that she likes to use in the solos. So we're up at 15 on the B, 14, 15, up to 17 on the E, back down to that 15, and then it would be 14 to 15, 17 on the E, back to that 15 on the B. There's a boy band song that this is reminding me slightly of, the chorus melody. Which one was it? Patience. Is it Take That, or one of them? It's like the kind of reformed. It's the one with Gary Barlow in, and I'm sure there's like a bridge or a chorus in it. If I can find what I'm talking about and it doesn't get blocked, I'll put that up just now. So I'm sure they didn't lift this line from a probably not known in Japan boy band from the UK. It's interesting that to me the what do I call it, like the emotional impact of those notes is just very similar. And it's quite like kind of funky, very rhythmic solo for her. And that's got do 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 do. What song is that? Is that Push It? It's not. She's not doing that exactly, but like that's, you know, this kind of, again, this kind of rhythmic. Do 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 do. So I don't know where she's playing that exactly. The way I'm doing it is 12 on the B, up to 14 on the E, 12 on the E, 15 on the B, 14. So I'll double check what it goes like. My memory's not working. Oh. Yeah, so we've gone 14, 15. 14, 14 on the G, so 1. What's interesting there, the reason I said 1 is she's playing on the offbeat, so rather than starting it on the first beat of the bar, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Can I even do it? 1, 2, 3, 4. I tried to play it there and it was too difficult for my brain to do, but if we count along, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, add 2, add 3. So she's coming in 1 and on that beat there, on that off beat, and that's why it's got some Velcro stuck to my foot there. If there's a little bit of Velcro around my lead, it helps keep it in place, but got stuck to my sock there. The inner plights of a musician in his home studio. What was I even talking about? So it's these little things, like I always say, it all adds up, and it's, you know, a bit of syncopation playing off the beat makes it feel a little bit more funky. Combined with the drum beat and stuff as well. And then there's octaves. So octaves are great because instead of just playing instead of just playing like a single note, which is okay, we could play it down here. We've got playing them together, I'm a bit out of tune. It's just got a different feeling. It helps build the dynamic of a solo when it's been these kind of funky single line things, and then you're adding like a bit more harmonic information. So it's kind of, it's got a, what do you call it, like a contour. You feel it's going somewhere. And then letting the notes ring into each other and then bend down to pitch. So, yeah, up. I really like the bass here actually. It's incredibly simple, but and a really nice thing to still include the bass there instead of having just the vocals. The note choice is just really cool, just reinforces the vocal melody, but still adds like a bit of momentum, a bit of movement to the song. Cool, and then we've got more of this kind of rhythmic thing, but with a, they're not just using the same rhythm, it's kind of keeping it interesting. Yeah, that's really cool. It's almost like somewhere between doing a little ellipsis and punching you in the face. Yeah, cool. And here you can hear the octaves coming in, the dancey drum beat. Just trying to read the lyrics here and see if I can garner. Yeah, cool. So like the lyrical content's kind of mixing in with the feel of this being generated by the octaves for me, and then the kind of punchy parts, the stabs there, where it's all like, you know, fall down, stand up. It seems to, like, you can always see someone stumbling, and then catching themselves. A fall down. I can see someone, you know, tripping over themselves a bit, almost falling on their face, almost in their face plant, and then, you know, back to it. Wait, I don't know if that was like an intentional visual image, but it just, for me, it just works really well. So they might have overdubbed the ride cymbal on the offbeat here. It could just be the ride bell, so that the timbre's changed. Cool, yeah, she might have switched to the ride bell. So the ride's a cymbal that's kind of the jazzy one. The bulk of the cymbal still has this sound. When you hit the bell, you get this really nice kind of ding. And again, I will try and bring that up in Cubase just now to demonstrate it a bit better than me just making weird noises with my mouth. Right, so this one over on the right hand side here, that's the ride cymbal. So it's got a kind of lighter sound than, for example, a kind of crash. But both of them still have quite a lot of sustain, so even if you just kind of hit it once, it goes on for quite a while. And this little kind of bit at the top here, it's called the bell. You can hear it's just got a slightly different sound. A bit more chimey in the sustain, but also kind of quieter for comparison. And an outro solo, yeah. So, and the outro solo there being like almost like kind of something remnant of the Pixies, doing these kind of two notes and letting them bleed into each other. It's a great way of creating this kind of. It's a very difficult feeling to define that they're. So it felt, you know, sort of downtrodden optimism or something like that. There's hope. There's hope yet, but it's not a great situation. Is the vibe I get from that? I always think it's spectacular how songs can kind of communicate very complex thoughts or emotions or feelings, well, almost more effectively than you can through kind of speech or something like that. And obviously it's subjective. You might think that's really uplifting or whatever, or think it's really depressing, or but I don't know, I just find that fascinating. And even that go round and round, the dun 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 dun, kind of feels like it's spinning as well. And then a big burnout. Nice. I had mentioned in the kind of initial reaction walkthrough video something about a low B. So just to go over what I meant by that, most basses, a standard bass has 4 strings. So imagine this for a second, the string doesn't exist. The same as a guitar, you've got an E, you've got an A, a D, and a G. So this is quite often easy for someone who plays guitar to switch to bass, or someone who plays bass to switch to guitar, because these 4 strings that you normally have on a bass are the same as the low 4 strings on a guitar. If you have a 5-string bass, there's a few things you can do with it. You can have a higher string here if you wanted, so that could be a B, for example. Oh, would it be a B? Yeah, it would, interestingly. Yeah, so you could have a higher B. What most people, including myself, tend to opt for is go lower, because it's a bass, so that's what you want. So this is a low B. Okay. So, tiny bit out of tune there. So this is a note that I really struggled to hear to begin with. It might be too low for you, and depending if you're listening on like a phone or a laptop, it might not come through. The lower a note gets, the harder it is for us to identify its pitch and if it's in tune. So one thing that you can do, I'll show you this very briefly, to help with these kind of low notes, particularly if they've got a bit of distortion on them like I do here. So if I hit hard, you can hear there's a little bit of drive. If you play this with your fingers, it's quite muffled, particularly if you play around here. You're going to get a more kind of hollow sound. You start to play more towards the bridge, you get more of a spank. If you use a pick, you get more of that again. So if I go here, lots of definition, lots of attack. As you start to move more towards the neck, you can hear it's getting kind of bassier, more kind of wompy, for lack of a better sound. So part of the trick is finding somewhere where you like to play the note. So for me, normally around here, somewhere around there, it's got enough of this kind of spank and definition without losing that kind of cool warmth. So if you're playing like dub or something like that, you might want to use your fingers and play close to here to get this. If you're playing a kind of punk or metal thing, or whatever you're doing and you want more definition, that's the place to go. Lisa definitely likes the sound of the thicker strings, which are a bit woolier, playing further up the fretboard, and the sound of a pick, which you get that more note definition than if you use your fingers. More pick attack is the sound of the plectrum hitting the strings. And as ever, if there's stuff I've talked about there that doesn't make sense, hit me up in the comments. I'll try and explain it or roll it into another video, because a lot of these concepts do kind of pop up again. If you enjoyed that and want to support the channel, allow me to keep doing these, make sure to hit up Patreon. If you don't fancy doing that, you can check out other videos, leaving a like and a comment. It's just super helpful for the channel as well. Hit subscribe to be kept up to date with new content, but take it easy guys. I hope you're having a good one.